All right. Good morning, Savannah, and welcome to the Savannah Business Showcase. I'm your host, Taraz, and I'm here this morning with the president of the Dewitt Tilton Group, Mr. Chris Tilton. And before we get started, before I let you introduce yourself, the way I like to start the show is with a scenario. So here we go. You're walking through your neighborhood. A little kid comes up to you and says, "Chris, you're my hero. How can I want to be like you when I grow up?" So in the language that a 10 and 12-year-old can understand, what does it take to be Mr. Chris Tilton?
Well, that's a pretty good question right out of the gate. I would say go to school, study hard, respect your parents, and live your dream.
Okay. I like that.
That's easy enough for a 10-year-old to understand, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Okay. All right. So where are you from? Where'd you go to school? Do you respect your parents?
Yeah, I grew up. Oh, absolutely. I grew up in. I was actually born in Savannah at the old St. Joseph Hospital.
Okay.
And I was raised in Hilton Head back when Hilton Head was almost a deserted island. That was back in. I was born in '66. So my parents separated and divorced, and my dad stayed in Hilton Head, and my mom moved over to Savannah in 1975. I went to St. James here in Savannah. I went to BC here in Savannah, and then I graduated and went to Georgia Tech and graduated there in 1990.
Awesome.
So I moved to Fripp Island, South Carolina after that, and worked up there and kind of bounced around. Went to Columbia for a little while, Atlanta, and I've been back. I actually live in Ridgeland, South Carolina now. I've been there for 13 years.
Okay.
But I work here in Savannah.
Okay. Nice. All right. So Savannah born and raised.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay. So so you said to live your dream. Like what does that mean to you? What does that mean?
Well, maybe I'm still searching for that, but my dream. I think I'm living my dream now. I'm 51. It took a while. I'm where my heart belongs. I live in the Low Country and I work in Savannah. And I said this not too long ago. Now that I've gone away from Savannah, I come back. We go up to Jen's and Friends on Wednesdays, and we'll sit outside there, and you sit around and look around at the oaks and look around at the parks, and you're just sitting there going, wow, what a beautiful city. And when you live here and you grow up here, you take it all for granted. But Savannah is just such a great place to be, to work, to live. And the Low Country is where my heart is, and that's where my dad moved. He moved from Savannah in 1964 to the Low Country. Okay. So we've kind of grown up there, and that's one of my dreams. Having my 4 kids, my wife, my parents right near me. My business partner, is somebody I went to BC with. Even my 12-year-old said the other day, he said, "Dad, are you and Mr. Andrew, y'all went to school together. Now y'all work together. That's pretty cool. I want to work with somebody I went to school with one day." So, the dream, and the business is good. Savannah's a great market to be in. We've got great clients, great people working for us. We go to church on Sundays, and we work Monday through Friday, and we try to get out on the river on Saturdays. I mean,
that's awesome.
So that's the dream.
That is the dream. Yeah. That's awesome. Okay, so your company is commercial construction,
right?
How did you get into that?
Well, I've been in the construction business my whole life. My dad was a builder. I graduated from Georgia Tech with a degree in building construction, and we went to Fripp Island. I lived there for 8 years. Went to Columbia for a little while. Moved back to work with my dad in 2005, and then 2008 and 2009, 2010 came along, and it was one of the worst times to be in the business. So things got slow, and Andrew had a commercial appraisal business. So I called him up and said, "Ooh, I could use anything you got." So I came over and started doing commercial appraisals, but my heart was still in construction. So Andrew and I started scheming back in 2011 and 12. Hey, we need to get in the commercial construction business, when the market gets a little better. So about 2014, I went and took the license in here in Georgia, and we opened up our business. I'd been doing home building for a long time, but I'd also done a lot of commercial building because we had an unlimited license in South Carolina. And to me, I liked building the big stuff. The homes, I did it for a long time, but Savannah has just got a great market for commercial construction, and we like building. The dream when you're in my shoes and building is building that business for the owner to come in and start building his business. And it's just so gratifying to see them when they go in that door and open it up shop, and customers come in, and you go in there a week later, and it's a thriving business, and it started as a piece of dirt. And there's no more gratification in our business than having that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I interviewed a brother team, the Norwood Construction Group. They're out in Richmond Hill.
Okay.
But they said something. I'm sure you feel the same way. But it's a difference. Like being in construction and building a building is different than any other business, because you can like look, you have something physical to look at and say, I built that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And you can show your kids that I built this.
Yeah, and the great thing too is not only the building, but that happy customer. Because if you build a building, you don't have a happy customer, you're gonna have to stay away from that.
That's true.
So it's and it's just great to see them have their business, and they entrust you to build the building that's going to have their business. It's a lot of responsibility, but it's a tremendous amount of gratification.
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay, so you have you guys just did a workshop.
Yep.
From dirt to the permitting process, critical steps to commercial construction.
Right.
I think I got that right.
That's close enough, right? Yeah, we did. We'd been talking with Cecilia and Cynthia, who does our PR, about doing a workshop, and really our main focus was try to help educate the people looking to get started in commercial construction. What's the first steps? And in Savannah and Pooler, Richmond Hill, Garden City, the biggest problem we have right now for commercial construction is lack of dirt and lack of sites. And the sites that are left for a reason, because they're poor sites. And what does that mean? The dirt's poor. The utilities are far away. The access is difficult. The zoning isn't quite what they want. So we decided to have a workshop. And when we did it, we were a little hesitant, because the last thing you want to do is have a workshop and 3 people show up, so we were a little hesitant to do it, but we went out there, and I went and did a radio interview, promoting it. We went out in the paper, we did an email blast, and sure enough, we had a full house. In fact, I think we were turning away people at the door.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
Steve Dirksen showed up late without an invitation, but we had, it was fantastic. And then we did the workshop. We had a lot of people come and say, wow, that was so informative. I never really thought about that. And what we were trying to explain to people is, if you go looking for commercial property, just because you see the price of the dirt's right, we have what we call a little matrix that we plug in: the price of the dirt, plus the price of the site work, plus the price of utilities, plus the price of any wetland mitigation. So we get to a baseline number that we can, equal all the way across the board. This compared to this, it's ready to build. And really, when you're going to build a site, you're building it eventually to build on. What's the total cost of that site ready to build the building?
Gotcha.
So you got to add a lot of factors in, and we were, explained it to a lot of people, and a lot of people said, wow, that makes a lot of sense. And we were telling people that if you can get involved with someone early, a builder, a real estate agent, someone who'll be an advocate for you, that help you go through the design process, help you go through the zoning process, it's best in your interest. And for us, it's the cost of doing business. We don't charge to do that. Ultimate goal is to build a building, but we advocate for our clients to help them get through that process and get to the point where they're ready to build.
Awesome. So we just tried to build a home, and it was extremely hard. I know commercial versus residential is different, but anyway, we tried to build a home. It was very hard to find a builder that we could trust,
right,
and believe in,
right,
and knew what they were doing, especially when we didn't know what we were doing.
Sure.
So like, as far on the commercial side of things, how do you, what are some tips to finding a great builder like yourself?
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of people, and especially in Savannah, a lot of people, there's some premier builders in Savannah, and they've heard of them and they go with them. I would always recommend, when we did one of our projects, we were on the bid list. There were 4 other builders. Get multiple prices, meet with the builder, and eventually you got to go with your gut. I mean, you got to get references, always talk to people they built for, but ultimately, and I tell people, you've got to trust me. And if you don't trust me, I can't build your building.
Right.
So you develop that relationship, and that's why we try to get in early, not only to help them get through that process of buying the dirt and the rezoning and anything they need to go along the way, but we want to build that trust with them. So when we get to the building phase, they believe in us. And it's difficult. And with home builders, it's the same thing. There's so many more home builders than there are commercial builders. And again, it's, you got to sit down and you got to have a comfort level. And it's just like with anybody else. I think when you meet someone, you're out there socially, you meet someone, you kind of know if this guy fits in your,
right,
the way you think, and is,
it doesn't take
same
long.
vibes. It doesn't take long. And I think that's the same thing with selecting a builder. You got to sit down with them. You got to have vibes. You got to have some history from the previous clients to get an idea. And after that, it's got to be price and their work. Commercial construction, there's a bunch of good commercial contractors in Savannah. They all do quality work. So it's down to your relationship and your price.
Okay, so as a builder, every business owner is a salesman, right? You have
I'm
to
a
sell
horrible
yourself.
salesman, but yeah,
But one way or another, you have to sell yourself.
That's right.
Yeah. So, like, what do you do to like build trust with the clients that you don't?
For me, I call it like it is. I don't really try to sugarcoat anything. I try to set expectations. I always try to underpromise and overdeliver. You know, I've been doing this, you know, for almost 30 years. I know the business. I know what it takes. I've done it from, you know, digging footings to hanging sheetrock to installation to frame. I've done it all. So I know you know, in building that team, we have a team that, you know, they know what we expect. They know the quality we expect. They know the timing we expect. Unfortunately, if you ask my wife and kids, I want everything and I want it today. That's just the way my mentality is, and it's unfortunate. I've been praying for patience and humility, and patience is the biggest thing I need.
Yeah.
But you know, it's just, you know, you gotta have the product in place. And when we started our company, we knew our biggest challenge, nobody's going to build with us because they didn't know who we were.
Right.
So we built the Press-to-Ball building in Pooler, and Don Peak was the owner, and he kind of rolled the dice. He got a recommendation from the bank. They knew us real well, and Don's our biggest advocate now. He would, you know, he writes letters all the time telling us how great we are.
Awesome.
And, you know, we performed. We did what we told them we were going to do, and at a good price. And that's all that, you know, the customer wants. And so what we try to do, we give them a very good price. I'm very detail oriented. I do my own takeoffs. For the most part, I am the superintendent, so I'm on the job because the expectations of the subcontractors, I need to make sure they're meeting those expectations.
Right.
And so selling yourself is the history of your work, and then, you know, being honest with customers, and that's what we try to do. Andrew and we're born and raised here in Savannah. We know a lot of people in Savannah. A lot of people know us, so it helps to get to that person and what we call get a seat at the table. And once you get at the seat of the table, that's all you can ask for as a builder. After that, it's up to you to get the job.
True. Okay. So I'm one of those entrepreneurs that has an idea every day, right? So I've thought about doing a donut shop before. I've thought about doing all kinds of crazy stuff. But so like, for example, so I live in Richmond Hill. You have a couple big projects in Richmond Hill. So tell me this. So I've always wanted to do a sporting goods store in Richmond Hill.
Right.
Should I build or should I lease, and like what should I look for?
Yeah. I mean, the problem is we're building Jeff's Beverage. It's a 12,000 square foot retail building, and Jeff's in one bay, and he's got 3 other bays he's leasing out. Now, one of the problems you're getting in, you know, when you're talking about a retail business, you're competing with the internet.
That's true.
And the problem is that we've had a lot of retail people come in there. Everything you do these days is competing with the internet. Now, there's certain products that, you know, people want to see and touch and feel.
Yeah, like a kayak.
A kayak maybe, you know, baby clothes usually. You know, there's certain things that people want to touch, feel, and see, but a lot of stuff they're going to buy off the internet. So if you were starting out a business, I would definitely lease a space to get that business to grow. And once you have that growth sustained, you know, it probably take 5 years to get to that point. Then you look to buy the property because instead of paying rent, you're building equity. But the problem is, you know, with the way the retail world is evolving, and I hate to say the A word, but they're selling everything online these days, and you're competing with everything you do. So the problem is if you go buy a store and you sink your life savings in it and it doesn't work out, then you're going all the way back to zero. You go lease a space, you get some inventory in it for 2 years, it doesn't work out, at least you're where you started. That's true. So, you know, I would recommend that with, you know, any new business that's growing.
Okay. All right. So you said once the growth is sustained, are there any other tips that you would give to like a business owner who has been leasing the space for, say, a few years and the growth, like what other tips would you give them to start looking into building?
Yeah. Well, I mean, once your growth sustained, you know your customer base. The biggest thing is, you know, where you're going to go. Are you in the right location? If you need exposure, and you're in a back retail area that's off of 17 in Richmond Hill, find one up on front. Improve your business. Have a business plan. What are you going to do? And that's one of the biggest things Jeff and I talk about all the time with his business is he's taken a big step from leasing, 4,000 or 5,000 square foot to go into a building. So of course his business business needs to expand, and he has a business plan where he's going to sell more, and in the interim, he's going to lease out some additional spaces that will help offset that. And, that's a great business plan because he's got it multifaceted. He's becoming a real estate landlord as well as a retail businessman. So that's it's a great business plan because you've seen the building in Richmond Hill. It's the best looking building in Richmond Hill. So everybody wants to come there, and so it's a great plan. It's a great leap of faith. I mean, you gotta believe in it because it's easy, to work for someone, and when you go out there and build your own business and use your own capital, it's a leap of faith. And it's great that we live in the United States of America in a capitalist society where people can do that, and it's what our country's all about.
Yeah, that's what we're built on. Definitely.
That's right.
Yeah, and those multiple streams of income are key.
Absolutely. And you never know. And my partner Andrew, he has a commercial appraisal business, and we talk about, wow, the building business is getting so bad. Let's get out the commercial appraisal business. And if his clients are listening, I'm just kidding. He doesn't say that. But the thing is having those two income streams, and if things go bad in one, you can rely on the other. And when things were real bad in 2000 and 2009, and we were deep in the building business, so we had nothing to fall back on. Luckily, my wife, she's worked at Microsoft for 23 years now, and so we had that. But a lot of people that's put all of their apples in one basket this day and age, it's tough.
It is.
So having some multiple streams there and something to fall back on, it's only a healthy environment to live in.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, cool. So why construction? Like, why did you I think you said your dad was in it, is that correct?
Yeah, well, it's funny. My dad was in it, and I was telling somebody the other day that when I was 6 years old, my dad's trim carpenter, Mr. Larissa, used to pick me up in his Volkswagen van back in the early 70s, probably 1971. But in the summertime, I had to work, even though I was 5. And, times have changed, of course. My son, he works at Fortnite now. So we would go to work.
Well, my son's looking for a job, just in case.
Well, good. He's old enough to get there. So I'd ride around, and, I'd pick up the trash, and every now and then he'd let me set a nail in the closet in the baseboard, So I kind of grew up in it. But when I graduated from BC, I was salutatorian. I went off to Georgia Tech, and I went to aerospace engineer. So I was 3 years in aerospace engineering, and the space shuttle blew up, and deep down in my heart, I knew it's in your blood, and as a builder, it's in your blood. But I wanted to prove, I could do something better because I had a good did well at BC, I did well at Georgia Tech, and I wanted to prove. But ultimately, I went back to my roots, and when I graduated from Georgia Tech, my uncle had just moved over to Fripp Island, which is a beautiful place. And one weekend I went over there and played golf, and I was interviewing up in Boston. I was going to go up in Boston to work, and we played golf, and we stood on the wall on the 18th green and looked out over the ocean. He said, "Man, why don't you just come here for 1 year and try it out, help us get started?" And I did. And, being a 22, 23-year-old moving to Fripp Island, it was heaven. So 10 years later, I said, I'm got to move on. So, it was in my blood. It's always in my blood. It's a tough business. My dad always warned me, don't get into construction because it is tough. It's very cyclical. There's a lot of ups and downs in it. But, if you just, if you manage it right, and, in 2008, 2009, it doesn't matter what you did. It was the worst economic times in the history of the United States. It was difficult, but we've learned a lot. And if you don't learn through bad experiences, then you're not paying attention. Right. So we've certainly learned a lot. We've got a really good business now, and, we're hoping to keep it going. I mean, my wife said she's done working when she's 55 years old. And so when we went met our financial advisor, we ran our incomes out till we're 70. And she's like, whoa, back that mine up to 55. But personally, I had to work my whole life. I couldn't do anything else. So I hope I'm working, whether it's my kids or somebody else comes in and takes over. I always want to be involved in work because it's in my blood.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, a little background on me. Like I was a real estate agent, residential. But also, I just realized that I just learned that my grandfather was actually a bricklayer and a mason as well. So in some ways, it's in my blood. I remember like coming out of high school, we had a garage and turned into like a little carport. But I ended up like remodeling it and making it into like a little we called it the shed, but I put up some terrible looking sheetrock, some terrible insulation. I cut out a hole in the wall for the air conditioner. It was terrible, but I did it, and it still feels good.
You were kind of drawn to it though too.
Yeah,
I'm sure
exactly.
It's calling. So
yeah,
I understand it. I really do. It's a good thing, and at a young age to know what you want to do. It's tough because my kids, I have a 20-year-old at Clemson and a 16, a 14, a 12-year-old. My 20-year-old, he actually is at Clemson, but he just joined the Navy.
Okay,
and
nice.
He's an officer candidate in training for the nuclear submarine squad.
Awesome.
And so he's got direction, but it's tough these days to get direction because it's so different from when we grew up that a lot of us followed in our father's footsteps, but we just didn't have the distractions that are out there today.
Tell me about it.
We had 3 TV channels, no Xbox, no
Right.
mobile phones.
Right.
What we did was we woke up in the morning, went out and played, went on adventures, saw things, thought what we might want to do. So I know it's difficult now. So it was nice to have that kind of direction when I was young and trying to figure it out on my own.
Yeah, and that's something I've been trying with my son too, because I'm just now figuring out what I want to do. And but if I can help him, guide him now, then he'll have that. I think it's Malcolm Gladwell called it the 10,000 hour rule, where that's when you really become like an expert after 10,000 hours.
Right.
So the earlier you can start,
sure,
the sooner you'll get to that 10,000 hours. But yeah.
Yeah, and the problem these days is everybody, they'll give it 200 hours, get frustrated, and move on.
Right.
And the problem is it's just like everything else. I mean, it's just like our parents when we grew up, when they fought, they stayed together forever. And now people, they fight, they get divorced. Nobody's willing to put in the time.
That's true.
And so, put in the time, put in the sacrifice, and, and pray to God that He tells you the right thing to do. And so, it's frustrating to see people bouncing back and forth and getting frustrated and say, this isn't for me, whereas we were taught to hang in there and bear with it. And so, that's probably good advice, to just stick with it until, it's unbearable.
Definitely great advice. Yeah, I heard somebody recently say that it's, there are only some games you can play if you're all in, and that's marriage and that's business.
Right.
So that's kind of the way I've been looking at it.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm not going to divorce my wife yet. So.
That's right. That's right. Well, let me tell you, the grass ain't always greener on the other side. So, and usually it is not. So everybody stick in there.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so Dewitt. That's not your name. You have a partner.
Yeah, I'm Chris Tilton. He's Andrew Dewitt. Yes.
Okay. So how's any tips for having a successful partnership?
Yeah, the great thing about Andrew and I, we were real good friends growing up. We went to BC. He was a year behind me. He was one of my best friends. So when I came back here in 2008, 2009, start getting into commercial appraisal business, he had that business, and he was more than willing to give me an opportunity. He knew I could do it. I went to Georgia Tech. And when we decided to do it, we have Andrew. He knows everybody in Savannah. He's been here. I moved around a lot. So he knows everybody. He can talk to everybody. I have the building business. And I brought on Kim Thomas, who used to work with me over in South Carolina in residential. She's our director of operations, and she pretty much runs our business. Andrew and I are just kind of on the peripheral there. But yeah, it's great. I mean, I think you gotta have a partnership with someone you like first and foremost. I mean, I've been in partnerships before, and hopefully none of them are listening. I didn't like them all. Gotcha. And if you don't like that person, it's hard to go grind it out for them every day. You got to trust them. And you got to have fun with them. I mean, one thing we do in our business is we have fun. I mean, it's tough. I've been running all morning, meeting, but we talk all the time. We joke all the time. We're going to get together this afternoon at Jen's and Friends for a beer.
Awesome.
I mean, it's you got to like that person. You got to trust that person, and I think those are the two most important things.
Okay. All right. Cool. Well, we are going to take a break here in a second. Is there anything we left out? What big projects are you working on right now?
Right now, we're Just Beverage. We're finishing up. We should be about 30 days out.
Okay, that's soon.
Yep.
Okay,
yep.
nice.
And the Living Goods store over in Pooler next to Spanky's.
Okay.
We're about 90 days out on that. We're doing a building up in Dublin for EMC Altima, the power company up there. We've got 2 projects. We're starting down in Warner Robins. We've got a project we're about to start over in Beaufort. So we're going all over. It's full blow right now.
Nice.
It's a good time to be in the business, and we appreciate that we're able to be in this wonderful market.
That's what I was going to ask you too. I know the residential side is going crazy right now. So how's the commercial side?
Yeah, it's great. And one of the issues, like we said before, is lack of land, lack of dirt. But there's a lot of opportunities, outside of Savannah. I met yesterday with the Jasper County people about Riverport. It's a great opportunity over there for light industrial land. And, it's just searching and finding that next place, finding that person, finding that tenant. It's just matching all those things up. And that's something that we've really tried real hard to do, is find someone who wants to build a building, find a tenant, find a dirt. And that's kind of what we were talking about earlier, from the dirt to the permit. Get involved early and set up that relationship, but help do it all, help start their business end of it. And that gets you a long way towards, your end goal of building the building.
Awesome. Are there like regulations against skyscrapers in the area?
Yeah, there's height. Yeah, there's height. Every district has a height limitation. Stories, amount of stories. And mainly, the districts in Savannah mainly go up to 5 stories.
Okay.
And I'm not sure the hotels. But 5 stories usually the height. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, is that kind of similar like outside of Savannah too? Because I just don't see that many.
Yeah.
Or is it just because there's not that many people?
Well, there just wasn't a demand for it, and it just got written in the ordinances of a restrictive height limitation.
Gotcha.
Because once you have everybody down low, you can't jump up and have people up above them. So that's just been the evolution of the ordinance.
Okay, cool. All right, well, Chris, how can people find you, get in contact with you?
Yeah, Dewitt Tilton Group. Our phone number, 912-777-3404. Email, the best email is Kim, Kim, at Dewitt Tilton Group. Our website, DewittTiltonGroup.com, which is a lot of things are going on. We have people working on our website now. And I guess that's everything to be able to get in touch with us. But again, like I said before, we love to build buildings, but we also love to help people out. If you have questions, anything we can do to help out. We were born and raised in Savannah, and we love to help out Savannians.
Awesome. All right, we are going to take a quick break. Everybody out there listening, don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back with Chris Tilton of the Dewitt Tilton Group to put him through the lightning round. So we'll be back in just a second. Peace. All right, Savannah, welcome back to the Savannah Business Showcase. Once again, I'm here with the illustrious guest, Mr. Chris Tilton of the Dewitt Tilton Group here in Savannah, the Low Country. And we're going to put him through the lightning round. Chris, are you ready?
What's the lightning round? You're going to ask me questions.
Yeah, so lightning round, just a bunch of random questions. Okay. Some are motivating to the listeners, some are business advice, some's life advice. Okay. And you can choose to answer it or pass. Okay. Some are fun, some are serious.
Sure.
Cool. And you can answer them as short as long as you want to.
Okay.
What did you want to be as a kid, and how does that relate to your current business?
If I had to pick, I wanted to play for professional sports, but I never got higher than 5'5". So I went to I followed my father in the construction business.
I thought I liked you. Yeah, when we first met. Yeah, I was just barely 5'6". It was because I had a little cold shaped head. Yeah, cool. Raz. So, sorry guys, my kids are here, and he's over playing with his laptop. Anyway. How you approach failure in life?
How do I approach failure in life? Well, I think the key to approaching failure is don't set your expectations too high, but don't be scared of failure. So that's something I've always thought about, thinking of the history. I don't want to set my goals too high, but I don't want to be afraid to failure. So I try to go in the middle, maybe. So maybe that's the way I approach failure. I'm not sure if it answers it.
Okay. So when you meet your goal, do you just reset the goal?
Sure. When you reach your goal, it's only a dream till you write it down, then it's a goal.
That's true.
So, always, your goals are always moving. Always moving.
Tell us a story about a failure.
A failure. Well, in 2009 and 2010, when business went bad, it was horrible. And, when we didn't file for bankruptcy, but it was tough getting subs paid. We had land that the banks owned, and it was just a horrible feeling going through that, not having an income. I tell this story. I remember one time when the kids went out in the boat, I was scrambling for trying to find some quarters to go get some peanut butter and jelly for the kids. It was tough. And, it was so frustrating and so demeaning that, you felt like a failure when in reality, it was the way of the world. But it was a good life lesson. And you look back on it now and understand why we went through something like that.
Yeah. So like you said earlier, like the market is cyclical,
right?
So it's coming back around
sure
sooner
it
or
is.
later.
Absolutely.
So what advice do you have for upcoming entrepreneurs?
Well, like I said before, if you don't learn from your mistakes, you're not paying attention. I think the biggest thing is just don't get so extended. I mean, back then, we hadn't had a tremendous failure in our lifetimes, really since our grandparents, had grown up. So we were out buying every land. We wanted to get ahead of the next 3, 4, 5 years. In this day and age, you just got to be careful.
Yeah.
Think out 1 year. Stay out of the full spec business. And spec business is where you go buy it all and then try to sell it.
Gotcha.
So we try to, if we were 50-50 spec, we might be 90-10. We might be 10% spec, 90% contract.
Gotcha.
So just learn from your failures and move on in life.
Great advice. How did you get your first client?
First client, since in this business, again, it was actually our first client was the Gretchen Green School of Dance.
Okay.
And they, John Sutherland, who works in our office, his kids went to the dance studio there. And Gretchen and Travis, who run it, they came in our office one day and said, hey, this is what we want. We don't have any idea where to go next. We drew them a plan. We helped them get the dirt. So it was a combination of having somebody who knew them, having the right answers, and like we said earlier, getting them in early, helping them purchase the dirt, get the plans drawn, get the engineering done. And they didn't have a clue. And a lot of people don't know how to do that part. So we were fortunate enough that we had a good client, we had an end to them, and then we were able to get them what they wanted.
What are you going to teach you? You said you have 4 kids, right?
Right.
Boys, girls?
I have 3 boys and a girl.
Awesome. So what are you going to teach your children about entrepreneurship?
Like we said a little bit earlier, I want them to chase their dreams, but I want it to be the problem with any kids, mine especially, is they're spoiled rotten, and they depend on me and their mother for everything. I think you got to let your kids out the nest. You got to teach them to soar on their own. We're always going to be there back to support them, but I want them to take chances, but understand if they fail, they can't come back to mommy and daddy.
Right.
You fail, you got to fall back down to the bottom of the ladder and get back up and climb again.
Yeah.
But chase your dreams. Don't be afraid. Don't set your expectations so high that you can't obtain them, but don't be afraid of failure.
That's something I think about a lot lately. Like how do you teach children in this day and age how to be tough?
Yeah.
How do you give them that drive?
Well, it's funny.
You know what I mean?
We actually met with Buddy Curry last week, and he was a former Falcons middle linebacker.
Yeah.
And we're helping support his camp. But I asked Buddy the same thing. He has 4 kids, and they all played Division I athletics. So I asked him, what do you teach your kids, just to have the right attitude and on. He said it's a good question, but his basic answer was, they got to learn it on their own. They got to fail. You can't teach them how to overcome a situation. They've got to live through that situation and learn how to overcome it themselves. So they got to fail. Your children, as much as you hate, they got to fail. They got to understand what it means to get over that hurdle and get to the next step. Because let me tell you, we're not always going to be there to pick them up and put them over that hurdle.
True. Nice. I like that. Okay. What have you had to sacrifice in order to start your business?
Sacrifice probably time with my kids. Having your own business takes you away. I mean, I take my kids to as much practice as I can. My wife takes my daughter to all her practices, but you sacrifice time. You sacrifice your money at the beginning until it starts coming back, but the rewards are way outweigh the things you sacrifice.
What's one thing in your business that drains you of energy, and what's one thing that excites you?
Well, what excites me is getting to that goal where that customer moves in and starts their business. Like I said, what drains me is, dealing with the problem is I'm only as good as the subcontractors that work under me. So a subcontractor say, I'll be there Tuesday. I'll tell my client he'll be there Tuesday. Well, he doesn't come Tuesday, and then I got to find out why he didn't come Tuesday. Truck broke down. Well, your truck broke down last week. It's tough when you're relying on other people for your performance of your job.
Right.
So that's the most frustrating thing, because I can't go do it myself. I'm relying. We have really good subcontractors. If they're not good, we replace them with subcontractors that are good. But inevitably, they will not show up when they're supposed to. They'll do something they weren't supposed to, and that's the toughest strain.
Yeah, Murphy's Law.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Okay, so what do you look for in a good contractor?
Well, I mean, we look for mainly 2 things: show up on time and do what you say you're going to do. And that's based on me telling you what to do first. And, we have expectations in our subs. I mean, I can't stand a sub that throws his trash on my job. I'd like to say, hey, let me come over to your living room and eat, and let me just throw my stuff on your floor.
Yeah.
And, most of my guys take care of all their own trash and pick up, and that means a lot to me because Jeff's Beverage and Living Goods, they're very neat sites, and that's a reflection on on our job performance. So that's something to me that says a lot, is the cleanliness of a subcontractor.
Awesome. I like that. A few more. What's your favorite book?
Favorite book. Let's see. I'm reading about 3 books right now.
Okay.
I love Ken Follett books. Probably my favorite book ever was Pillars of the Earth.
Okay.
I'm reading, which is funny. I'm reading, oh my gosh, I can't remember the name. I think it's Jackpot. It's the story of the guys over in Hilton Head who got caught running drugs.
Okay.
And I'm reading The Lamb's Supper, which is about the Mass and its relation to the Book of Revelations.
Got you.
So
Okay.
I'm kind of all over the gamut right now.
So it's Pillars of the Earth, then fiction and nonfiction?
It's a fiction. It's a
Okay.
Ken Follett, but it's kind of historical based. I'm a big history buff.
Okay.
So it's a historically based book.
Got you. All right. So there's a concept called Pareto's Principle, the 80-20 rule. 20% of your actions equal 80% of your results. So at Dewitt Tilton, what are the 20% of things you do, the small amount of things you do to get you the most results?
Yeah. That's a. Let me think how I can apply that to. Well, I think the biggest thing, the 20%, what we try to do as much work in our office. And what we try to do, we're able to do a lot of things, design, ordering buildings, setting our work orders for our subcontractors. It's all that preliminary work that is done at the front end of a job. And if it's done right and with some forethought, it goes a long way towards getting to your end goals. So I think that preparation, that budgeting, we do updates every week of where we are on job cost. And again, it's just, keeping your thumb on the business, that preparation, pre-preparation, pre-construction work that goes a long way toward achieving your goals.
I think you said this earlier, but do you feel that your business is your life's calling?
At this point in time, yes, there's no doubt about it.
Awesome.
It's my passion.
Yeah. Is there a quote that's always been a mantra that you live by?
No, I can't think of a specific quote that
Okay.
I live by. I mean, just live your dream. I mean, that's something that I've always chased. I'm not sure it's a quote, but
yeah, that's good enough. 3 more.
All right.
2 more.
1 more.
Advice for entrepreneurial kids. So kids that are 10 or teenagers.
Right.
Yeah. Advice for them who.
Well, I think the biggest thing is at 10 years old you don't know what you want yet.
Mm-hmm.
So don't even think you know what you want yet. I mean, my 12-year-old, guess what? He wants to be a pro athlete. So hey, right now when you're 10 or 12, say you want to chase being a pro athlete because the odds of that are very slim.
Yeah.
But I say, go to school, study hard, listen to your parents, be respectful of your elders, and let life come to you. Eventually it's going to click. You don't have to solve all the world's problems. Even when you're 16, you don't have to solve all the world's problems.
Right.
And just don't panic. And, my 16-year-old is going to be a junior this year. He's saying, I don't know what I want to do. Don't worry about it. It'll come to you. Just keep working hard, and say some prayers. And eventually that life passion will come to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you see the passion in your, are you looking for what they're good at?
We talk about it some. I try not to set, too much on their plate. But yeah, I mean, my oldest son's going in the Navy. He's great. He's a mechanical engineer with a minor in math. My one who's a junior, he's great at math. He wants to be an engineer.
Okay.
My daughter, she's great at everything. She can do whatever. She said she wants to be a rock and roll singer and a veterinarian. I believe she could probably pull that off.
Okay, all right.
And then my youngest, he's actually getting pretty tall. He might get to that sports goal.
Okay.
But they're all passionate about when they get involved in something. So I don't have any problems, any doubts that they'll achieve their goals.
Awesome. Okay, and the last question I ask everybody: if you had a superpower or ability, what would you choose and why?
If I had a superpower or ability, wow. I've always wanted to fly, but that's probably not really good. Superpower ability? I don't know. I guess one thing I'd love to do, I would love to be able to hear what people are thinking. I would love to go out at Jens and Friends and sit at the table and wonder what everybody's thinking. Because I love people watching. And so I'm always thinking about what they're doing. So wouldn't it be great to sit there and think about what they're, hear what they're thinking? I know that's kind of silly, but
no. I had the same. That's one of mine too. Like Professor X off X-Men. I don't know what they call this, but anyway. But yeah, and that's part of the reason I do this, and I enjoy doing this because I like to hear people's stories.
Right.
And I just always wish that I can know everybody's story.
Right, absolutely.
It might get overwhelming.
Yeah.
Well,
you heard all my thoughts today, so I voiced them. So.
That's true. Yeah. So thank you for being on the show.
Oh, well, thank you for having us.
Yeah. Again, how can people find you, get in touch with you? What's the best ways?
Yeah. Dewitt Tilton Group are probably the easiest places. Email Kim, Kim at Dewitt Tilton Group, and our phone number is 912-777-3404. Call with any questions, comments, or concerns.
Awesome. All right, Chris, thank you for being on the show.
All right, Raz. Thank you so much. We enjoyed it.
Yeah.
You too, little Raz.
Yeah. Okay. As always, everybody out there listening, be the change you want to see in the world. Go out there and tell somebody you love them. Do something impactful this week. And you don't have to, in order to change the world, you don't have to have $1 million. You can just go down the road and help somebody. So,
hey, can I say one more thing?
Yeah, please.
You just mentioned, I heard this recently in my men's church group. And it's the simple definition of love. And love is the action of sacrifice for another person, for the good of another person. And I thought that was pretty compelling because when you think about love, this that tingly feeling you get when you're holding somebody's hand, but it's the action of sacrificing for the good of another person. So I thought that was cool. You just mentioned love. So.
Yeah, no. I like that. Love is the action of sacrificing
for the good of another person.
For the good of another person. I like that a lot.
So if you think you love somebody, figure out what you've sacrificed for the good of that person lately.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I'm writing that down. I think it's like the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I don't know if you ever read that book.
I have read it.
Yeah, but he says like love is a verb and it's something you do.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you guys for listening, and I'll see you next week.